A late summer evening in Nashville, August 30th, 1991. The Grand Ole Opry's stage lights shine bright, waiting for a performance that will never come. Dottie West, one of country music's most beloved voices, is rushing to make her scheduled show when a series of fateful decisions leads to a tragic accident that would ultimately claim her life. Behind the glamour and hit records lay a story of triumph and tragedy, of a woman who rose from poverty to stardom only to see it all slip away. Her powerful voice and heartwarming lyrics touched millions, but behind the smiles and songs, a troubled life would lead to a heartbreaking end. Dorothy Marie Marsh entered the world in Frog Pond, Tennessee, a tiny community nestled in the hills about 64 miles northeast of Nashville in Monroe County. The eldest of 10 children born to Paulina Martha Marsh, formerly Jones, and William Hollis Marsh, young Dorothy's early life was marked by hardship and struggle. Her father, though talented on fiddle and guitar, battled alcoholism that left the family in constant financial turmoil. They lived in dilapidated homes, often without enough food on the table. At one point, relatives attempted to build them a new house, but Hollis, in a drunken rage, destroyed it before completion. During World War II, Hollis was drafted but discharged after just 3 months. The family saw a brief period of relief when military allotment checks began arriving, allowing them to finally construct a proper home. Paulina secured work at a tree nursery to help support her children. As the oldest, Dorothy shouldered heavy responsibilities, caring for her younger siblings while her mother worked. Together they labored in nearby fields, gathering fruits and vegetables to keep the family fed. The shadows of Dorothy's childhood ran deep. By age 11, she faced unthinkable abuse from her father, trauma she kept silent about for years. At 15, these difficulties led to a miscarriage, yet music offered an escape. As one of the few families with a radio, their home became a gathering place on Saturday nights. As neighbors crowded in to hear the Grand Ole Opry, Dorothy absorbed every note, finding solace in the sounds of country music that would later define her life. At age 12, Dorothy managed to raise funds through a school event to purchase her first guitar. During her teenage years at Central High School in McMinnville, Tennessee, there were moments of stability, but her father's ongoing battles with alcohol and his volatile temper cast a constant shadow over their lives. His unpredictable behavior kept Dorothy and her siblings in a perpetual state of fear. At 17, a turning point arrived when Hollis landed a job with the Ford Motor Company in Detroit, Michigan. He announced plans to pull Dorothy from school and take her with him. Frightened and desperate, Dorothy confided in her teachers about her situation. The resulting investigation led to Hollis's arrest on charges of family misconduct. Dorothy spent several weeks with the county sheriff while her mother relocated the rest of the family to an apartment in McMinnville. She later testified in court, leading to her father's conviction and 40-year prison sentence. He would die behind bars in 1967. In the aftermath, Dorothy and her mother rebuilt their lives in McMinnville. They relied on welfare initially, with both mother and daughter taking jobs as waitresses at a local diner. Gradually, Paulina managed to move the family into a house and eventually opened her own restaurant in McMinnville. During this time, Dorothy began going by the name Dottie and immersed herself in music, playing guitar and singing in a high school band called the Sadskins, performing at local square dances and picnics. A local businessman recognized Dottie's talent and helped her secure a music scholarship to Tennessee Polytechnic Institute. On her very first day of classes, she met Bill West, a steel guitar player who would become her first husband and musical collaborator. Their marriage during her sophomore year was immortalized in the college yearbook, marking the beginning of both a personal and professional partnership that would shape country music history. In 1956, the West family moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where Bill secured work at a steel plant while Dottie landed a 5-year position on the regional country music television show Landmark Jamboree. She partnered with Kathy D to form the K-Dots, gaining valuable experience performing alongside established artists like the Carter Sisters. But Dottie dreamed of breaking into mainstream country music, and the family spent weekends driving to Nashville, Tennessee, pursuing opportunities for a recording contract. During a pivotal visit in 1959, Dottie made the rounds at every record label in Nashville, but faced rejection after rejection. Just as the family was preparing to return to Cleveland, they spotted the office of STARDOM Records. In a moment of destiny, Dottie seized the chance to audition for Don Pierce of STARDOM and was signed on the spot. A week later, she invested $511 of her savings to record her debut single, Angel on Paper. While the single and her subsequent releases didn't achieve significant commercial success, Angel on Paper received enough airplay in Nashville to catch the attention of Roy Drewski from the Grand Ole Opry, who invited Dottie to make her Opry debut in 1960. That year, she made several appearances at the Opry while saving for a permanent move to Nashville. By 1961, after accumulating nearly $1,000, the West family relocated to Music City, initially staying with Bill's relatives before settling into a modest home in West Nashville. That same year, Dottie began working with booking agent Lucky Mueller, who organized her first tours and performances across the country. During this period, she and Bill connected with emerging songwriters like Hank Cochran, Willie Nelson, Roger Miller, Red Lane, and Justin Tubb. These songwriters would gather at the West's home, where Dottie would cook for them while learning the craft of songwriting. A pivotal friendship formed with Patsy Cline, who occasionally invited Dottie and her family to join her on tour, providing them with valuable work opportunities. In July 1962, Dottie signed with Atlantic Records, becoming their first country music artist. However, like STARDOM before them, Atlantic struggled to achieve commercial success with her recordings. A breakthrough came when one of her early compositions, Is This Me, recorded as a demo with steel guitarist Pete Drake, caught Jim Reeves' attention. He recorded the song, and it became a hit in the early 1960s. Impressed by Dottie's talent, Reeves introduced her to Chet Atkins at RCA Victor, leading to her signing with the label. In 1963, Dottie released her first singles under RCA, Touch Me and Let Me Off at the Corner, with the latter becoming her first charting song, reaching number 29 on the U.S. country chart. Her next release, Love Is No Excuse, a duet with Jim Reeves, climbed into the top 10, but it was her solo effort, Here Comes My Baby, co-written with Bill, that truly launched her career, reaching the top 10 of the U.S. country chart in late 1964. This success earned Dottie the first Grammy Award ever presented to a female country artist and secured her membership in the Grand Ole Opry. Dottie's debut studio album, Here Comes My Baby, 1965, produced by Chet Atkins, featured 5 of her original songs and reached number 12 on the U.S. Country Albums chart. Her follow-up album, Dottie West Sings, achieved similar acclaim. During this period, several singles, including Didn't I and Getting Married Has Made Us Strangers, made it into the top 40. Critics praised her deeply emotional vocal performances and sincere lyrics. Her 1966 album Suffer Time explored themes of heartbreak and troubled relationships, climbing to number 3 on the U.S. country chart. The standout single, Would You Hold It Against Me, soared into the top 5. With Chet Atkins continuing to produce her music, Dottie released 3 additional albums in 1967, With All My Heart and Soul, Dottie West Sings Sacred Ballads, and I'll Help You Forget Her. These projects featured popular tracks like Paper Mansions and Like a Fool. As her fame grew, Dottie established her touring band, The Heartaches, which included Bill on steel guitar. The group traveled extensively throughout the U.S. and Canada, performing at state fairs and various venues. Her album, The Sound of Country Music, acknowledged both her and the Heartaches. During this period, she also appeared in 2 country music films, Second Fiddle to a Steel Guitar and There's a Still on the Hill. In 1968, RCA released 3 studio albums by Dottie, What I'm Cut Out to Be, Country Girl, and Feminine Fancy. All 3 made their mark on the U.S. Country Albums chart, with singles Country Girl and Reno achieving top 20 status in the U.S. and landing in the top 10 in Canada. As Dottie's career advanced, she began collaborating with male country artists on duets. Her first partnership with Don Gibson resulted in several recordings featured on their 1969 album, Dottie and Don. Their first duet, Rings of Gold reached number 2 on the U.S. country chart and topped the Canadian country chart. Subsequent releases included Sweet Memories, later recorded by Willie Nelson, and There's a Story Going Round, which became a top 10 U.S. country single. In 1971, she joined Jimmy Jean on the single Slowly, which entered the U.S. Country Top 30. They recorded an album of duets titled Country Boy and Country Girl and performed together at the Landmark and Golden Nugget Hotels in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, Dottie continued releasing solo material. Between 1970 and 1972, RCA Victor issued singles such as Clinging to My Baby's Hand, Careless Hands, Lonely is I'm Only a Woman. By the early 1970s, critics noted a deepening emotional quality in her vocals. Analysts described her evolving style as incorporating a moaning quality for greater emotional depth. Her 1971 single, 6 Weeks Every Summer, Christmas Every Other Year, earned praise for its substance and passion, with Dottie reportedly crying during the recording session as she sang about a single mother's struggles. The 1970s brought personal upheaval as her marriage to Bill West ended in 1972 due to his infidelity. In the same year, she married Byron Metcalf, her band's drummer, who was 14 years her junior. During their wedding, she famously modified the traditional vow till death do us part to as long as love shall last. However, by 1980, she filed for divorce, citing Metcalf's drinking and infidelity. The divorce settlement required her to pay him $55,000, plus $1,000 for legal fees. Throughout all this, Dottie maintained a reputation for lavish spending. Stores would extend their hours past midnight to accommodate her private shopping sprees. She openly acknowledged her tendency for rapid spending, admitting her financial choices were sometimes questionable, but she enjoyed the thrill. By the 1980s, her annual income ranged between $1 and $2 million. She purchased a colonial mansion in Williamson County, Tennessee, complete with a bowling alley, closets full of designer outfits, and even a mirror installed on her bedroom ceiling. Financial troubles mounted. In August 1990s, Dottie filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, reporting a $1 million debt to the IRS. She later converted to Chapter 7 bankruptcy to liquidate assets. Her management company sued her for $130,000 for contract violation, while her former manager Michael Brokaw claimed rights to 15% of her earnings. In September 1990, First American National Bank took possession of her colonial mansion, which they had acquired for $800,000. Her Chevrolet Corvette was repossessed, prompting Kenny Rogers to lend her a car. Dottie relocated to the Wessex Towers condominiums in Nashville. An anonymous tip led bankruptcy trustee John McLemore to discover she had hidden personal items in storage to protect them from the IRS. In April 1991, several porcelain pieces and a guitar were found in the storage unit. By June 1991, the IRS auctioned her belongings. While some fans bought items to return to her, others, including her baby grand piano and 1976 Cadillac Fleetwood, were sold off. Despite these setbacks, Dottie remained active in her career. In 1984, she signed a 5-year deal with Permian Records, working with producer Jerry Crutchfield on her album Just Dottie. The album featured her final U.S. charting country hits, including What's Good for the Goose is Good for the Gander, and We Know Better Now. Her duet with Kenny Rogers, Together Again, reached the U.S. Country Top 20 in 1984. In 1986, Dottie made her acting debut in the science fiction thriller The Aurora Encounter, playing Irene Rutherford, a widow who encounters aliens. As the 1980s progressed, her popularity declined, though she continued performing, often as Kenny Rogers' duet partner. By 1989, she began performing with her daughter, Shelley West, who had achieved her own success in country music. Then came the tragic events of 1991. In July, Dottie lost control of her Chevrolet Camaro and crashed into a concrete wall, receiving citations for careless driving and not wearing a seatbelt. Just weeks later, on August 30, while rushing to a Grand Ole Opry performance, her car stalled. Her neighbor George Thaxton offered to drive her, But as they took the Opryland Highway exit ramp, he lost control. The car became airborne and crashed into an embankment. Investigators determined Thaxton was driving 55 MPs on a 25 MP ramp. Initially appearing unharmed, Dottie was admitted to the hospital with a ruptured spleen and lacerated liver. At Vanderbilt University Medical Center, she underwent several surgeries but lost significant blood. On September 4, 1991, while being prepared for another operation, her heart stopped at 9:43 a.m. Despite attempts to revive her, Dottie West died at age 58. Her funeral at Christ Church in Nashville on September 7, 1991, saw her granddaughters perform an original tribute while Steve Wariner sang Amazing Grace, and Kenny Rogers delivered a moving eulogy about her emotional performances. She was laid to rest at Mount View Cemetery in her hometown of McMinnville. Dottie West's legacy endures as a pivotal figure who elevated the profile of female country artists. Robert K. Orman compared her to legends like Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, and Tammy Wynette, calling them American icons who transform personal struggles into powerful music. Her fight for respect in country music's male-dominated world opened doors for countless female artists. Her ability to reinvent herself throughout her career, particularly in her 40s, demonstrated remarkable resilience. The success of her 1973 crossover hit Country Sunshine, created for Coca-Cola, showed her adaptability to changing times. Though she faced criticism from traditional country fans, her evolution kept her relevant for decades. In 1990, CBS aired Big Dreams and Broken Hearts, the Dottie West story, starring McKelly Lee. The film featured appearances by country legends and highlighted West's impact on the genre. Her influence continues to inspire new generations of artists, with many covering her songs and citing her as an influence. In 2002, CMT named her one of the 40 greatest women of country music. Her hometown honored her by naming Highway 56 the Dottie West Memorial Highway. After years of campaigning by artists and fans, including a Facebook movement that attracted over 500 supporters, Dottie West was finally inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in October 2018, a testament to her lasting impact on American music. From the poverty of Frog Pond to the pinnacle of country music stardom, from Grammy glory to financial ruin, Dottie West's story reminds us that the most profound art often emerges from life's deepest struggles. Her voice continues to echo through the halls of country music, inspiring new generations to find strength in vulnerability and beauty in truth. Though her life ended tragically, her legacy as a pioneering female artist who helped reshape country music ensures that her memory, like her music, will endure.